This tiny box may be one of the best Warhammer products ever released. Or at least I think so. Known as Battlefield Trophies, this awesome kit contains skulls, helmets, heads, from pretty much every faction in the 41st millennium for you to include on your bases. Storytelling is one of my absolute favourite parts about Warhammer, and the things you can do with this kit are just so awesome. But with that said, there are obviously lots of colour schemes in this box, many of which you may not be used to, so this video will act as a whistle-stop tour and teach you everything you need to know about how to paint these quickly. Let's get started. Here's a list of all the paints I'll be using. Even though I'll be going through how to paint several different factions, I try to keep the paint list low. So for instance, all the silver details will use Iron Warriors exclusively, rather than also including something like Leadbelcher. And here's also a list of all the extra tools and equipment, but feel free to use whatever brushes you have to hand. Before we get started, I first need to undercoat every single one of these awesome Battlefield trophies. Now, the undercoat colour will always vary, these are just extra decorations for the base after all, and plus each one belongs to a totally unique paint scheme. So with that in mind, I've gone with Grey Seer Spray on all of my Battlefield trophies, but whatever undercoat you have will be fine. With that out of the way, there's lots to get through, so let's get started with the forces of the Imperium. First up, of course, is the boys in blue. There's a total of 12 generic Space Marine helmets in the Battlefield Trophies kit, as well as a whole crushed Space Marine base topper, and obviously, you're welcome to paint them how you like. I'll be painting them as Ultramarines as they appear on the box art, so what better paint to start with than Macragge Blue. I'm applying this in 2 thin layers over all the blue parts of the helmet, which is pretty much all of it. Once the armour has been fully base coated, I'll quickly pick out the silver parts using Iron Warriors. You may find on small areas like these that one thin layer does the trick. For the eye lenses, I'll be using Blood Angels Red. Now this is a contrast paint, so I'm cheating a little bit here using that Grey Seer undercoat. But if you have used a different undercoat to me, that's totally fine. You'll just have to quickly apply some Grey Seer, Wraithbone, White Scar, you get the drill, you'll have to apply one of those first. Basically just paint this part in a bright white or off-white first and you'll be sorted. And while you're at it, you can pick out any part of the skull peering through, which will set us up nicely for an all-over shade of Agrax Earthshade. Super quick and super easy. That's the first Battlefield trophy done and dusted. Obviously I haven't added any highlights to this poor Ultramarine just because we have so many examples to get through and I'd like to keep each recipe short and sweet. But with that said, of course you can go ahead and add some highlights to this fallen brother and any other of the upcoming casualties of battle. Moving on, we have yet another Space Marine, this time however, a mighty Terminator. That's right, the Xenos and Chaos forces have some tricks up their sleeves to bring down even tactical Dreadnought armour. A member of the first company, this helmet is white, so I'll be kicking off with a base coat of Corax White. A couple thin layers later, I'll paint the eyes once again with Blood Angels Red, not to worry if you make any mistakes. Iron Warriors for all the silver details, and finally, I'm finishing up with another all-over shade. But this time, rather than use Agrax Earthshade, I'll be using some Nuln Oil thinned down with some Lahmian Medium. This is a much more subtle approach, which is exactly what I want so I don't lose too much of that crisp white. Of course, you can use Agrax here, but the end result will look much more gritty and dirty, but hey ho, maybe that's what you're after. Either way, that's another Battlefield trophy complete. It's not just Space Marines that fight and fall for the Emperor. Who could forget about the brave soldiers of the Astra Militarum and their many, many sacrifices for the Imperium. This poor Cadian soldier is just one of 23 Astra Militarum heads included in this kit, and to start this super simple scheme, I'm painting their helmet using Castellan Green. Once that's done, I'll move on to my trusty pot of Iron Warriors to paint all the silver details. And seeing as I've left that skull in that Grey Seer undercoat, all that's left to do is to apply an all-over shade of Agrax Earthshade. If you did use a different undercoat to me, don't forget to quickly go back and block in the first skull with an off-white of your choice. But with that done, this Cadian head is complete. Among those 23 Astra Militarum heads that I mentioned earlier are actually some Death Korps Krieg heads. So despite being from the same faction, the colour scheme between these 2 different regiments is totally different, so let's quickly paint this one too. For the face mask, I'm using Karak Stone, applied in 2 thin layers as normal. Then it's back onto Iron Warriors for all the silver parts like the helmet, Abaddon Black for any black details, Retributor Armour for the Aquila, and finally concluding with an all-over shade of Agrax Earthshade once again. Blammo, this durable soldier of Krieg is no more and lays forgotten on the battlefield. There's plenty more Imperial helmets kicking around in the Battlefield Trophies box, including 8 Adeptus Sororitas Battle Sister heads. These ones are particularly awesome and easy to paint. I'm starting with a base coat of Abaddon Black for the helmet, but I'm actually leaving this faceplate here in that Grey Seer undercoat. And that's because once I finish with the black, I'm picking this out with Corax White, which would work fine over the black base coat, but will need less layers for better coverage over Grey Seer. With that done, Iron Warriors for the silver details, Blood Angels Red for the eye lenses, and finally an all-over shade of Nuln Oil. Once that's dry, it's complete, looking awesome, and you can use this scheme for the Arbites heads too, as they're very similar. Believe it or not, but the Adeptus Custodes can actually perish in battle just like the rest of their Imperial brethren. Although this happening is much more rare than Acadian, for instance, and to reflect that, you only get one Adeptus Custodes helmet in the Battlefield Trophies kit. But it does look excellent and would be a great addition under a Chaos Demon Prince or an absolutely awesome Xenos character. It'll be no surprise to anyone that I'm starting with a base coat of Retributor armor for all the gold areas. After that, it's back to Iron Warriors for the silver details, Blood Angels Red for the eye lenses and this fancy head plume, Frostheart for the gem, and big surprise, an all-over shade using Agrax Earthshade. With that done, that concludes all the Battlefield Trophies of the Imperium, but there's plenty more in the kit. Up next is the Forces of Chaos. First up is the classic Chaos Space Marine helmet, painted in the scheme of the Black Legion. There's 6 of these guys in the box, as well as a couple Chaos Terminator helmets, and for both I'm starting with a base coat of Abaddon Black for all the armour. Then I'm using Retributor armour for any trim. Spoiler alert, this is going to become a common occurrence throughout most of the Chaos stuff. Onto Blood Angels Red for the eyes, Agrax Earthshade all over to shade it and bring it together, and then Skeleton Horde for any horns like on the Terminators. There we are, that's the generic Chaos stuff out the way, but there's quite a few specialist pieces dedicated to a certain few Chaos gods. As long as heads are rolling, Khorne won't be feeling left out, but just in case, there are some Khorne Berserker heads in the kit too. Mephiston Red is a great start for all the red areas on these. Then I'm going back to Retributor armor for all the trim, Striking Scorpion Green for those eye lenses, and then Agrax Earthshade all over to tie everything together. Looking awesome, maybe it just needs some blood for the Blood God and Khorne should be happy. But I'll leave that to you. Nurgle also has some representation in this kit, with a couple different Death Guard helmets that look just as grimy on the battlefield floor as they do on the shoulders of Plague Marines. These ones are super easy. I'm starting rather fittingly with Death Guard Green, then with the helmet base coated I'm doing the silver details of Iron Warriors, eye lenses with Blood Angels Red, and finishing up with Agrax Earthshade as normal. There we are, another chaotic, albeit probably a little gross, Battlefield Trophy complete. All that's left of the Chaos Forces in this kit are 3000 Suns helmets. These are super detailed and will need a few extra colours. But starting off with 1000 Suns Blue, obviously, and then moving on to Retributor armor for the trim. Imperial Fist Yellow for the iconic yellow stripes. Remember, this is a contrast paint, so you'll need to block these out with an off-white first if you haven't already. Moving on to Iron Warriors for the silver details, Frostheart for the eyes, Abaddon Black for the battle damage, and finally, Agrax Earthshade to finish it all off. Blammo, that's all the Chaos stuff in the Battlefield Trophies box complete, which means all that's left is the Xenos Forces. This kit takes Purge the Alien very seriously, as there's just so many Xenos heads and helmets to choose from. There's 6 Tau Fire Warrior helmets, which might be my favourite thing in the box, which is strange considering they're in my top 5 factions. Either way, I'm starting these off with a base coat of Corax White. This will take a few layers, but cover the Grey Seer undercoat super easily. With that done, I'm carefully picking out the black areas using Abaddon Black, Frostheart for the eye lenses, and a nice mix of Nuln Oil and Lamia Medium all over to add some subtle shading. Looks great, and it was super simple too. Very strange that I'm this happy to see a dead Tau, still can't get over that. And I don't think I will anytime soon. That's not it for the Tau Empire, there's also a couple Vespid skulls, which are just so cool to see included. Gryph-hound Orange all over the exoskeleton, it's a great starting point. With that done, next apply Skeleton Horde to the mandibles and to the eye sockets too if you fancy it. You don't have to though. To tie it all together, I like to add an all-over shade using Agrax Earthshade, but once again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. It looks awesome either way and would be a particularly great addition to the base of a Tempestus Aquilon. There's just a few Xenos heads left, like this Eldar Guardian, which has a nearly identical colour scheme to the Fire Warrior. Corax White to start us off, Abaddon Black for the central faceplate, Frostheart for the eyes, and another mix of Norn Oil and Lamia Medium applied all over to create a subtle shade. Done and dusted, an Eldari casualty fit for any base. All that's left for the Xenos forces is the array of Tyranid skulls included in the kit. I'll be using this Hormagaunt head, and I'll be painting it in the Leviathan colour scheme. I'll start with Naggaroth Knight, which I'll use for the carapace, and then I'm thinning down some Magos Purple with some contrast medium and applying it all over the skin. This will shade it, whilst also applying a purple tint. And to shade the carapace, I'm simply applying Norn Oil to it, and to the eye socket too. Boom! A lovely fresh dead Tyranid, even Titus himself would be pleased to see. Now we've just gone through so many different colour schemes and factions, but there's actually plenty more included in the kit. Everything that's left in the box are skulls. Whether they be human, orcs, Tau, or Tyranids, this kit is jam-packed full of skulls, and there's all sorts of ways to go about painting them. So I'm just going to show you a few of my favourite and easy methods that I like to use, and you can decide whether they're right for you. First up is simply applying Skeleton Horde over an undercoat like Grey Seer, waiting for it to dry and then applying a gentle dry brush of Screaming Skull on top. Two very aptly named paints that do the job super well and reliably. If contrast paints aren't your thing, something else you can do is base coat your skulls with Xandri Dust, shade them all over with Agrax Earthshade, and then finish up with some Screaming Skull in the same way as before with a gentle dry brush. But as I say, those are just two methods that I find myself using quite often, so take them as you will, try them out, or maybe even combine them together. Well, hopefully you found this video useful. Even though we didn't physically paint every single miniature, now you should be more than ready to paint any of the 288 plastic components within this kit. That's right, there really is that many, and if you would like a full breakdown of the contents, head on over to the Warhammer website and check out the product description for a full breakdown. As always, if you're looking for more tutorials, tips and tricks, you can check out some of the other videos on the Warhammer YouTube channel, or alternatively, you can head to a Warhammer store where our amazing staff are always happy to help. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye bye!